Goodness. Good morning, Judy. How are you today?
Good morning, Neibra. How are you today?
Well, I'm excited. You know I'm excited, right?
Maybe because this is the fourth, our last one in this series that we've been doing.
Yes, I always like the fourth part because it's a summary of all of the three preceding episodes. And I feel like when we finish the fourth one, we're giving our listeners something that they can take away and they can go put in their journals and they can just do something with it.
Actually, I feel like we've been doing that with the other three. We're just going to tie the loose ends up this morning.
How about that? But I'm also excited because it's still countdown. We are are we 3 weeks away from the women's conference?
Girl, this baby is kicking within my womb. Oh, it's kicking. I can feel the pain. I'm ready to be delivered.
It's that anxiety you get, when the baby, you're a couple of weeks away from the delivery and you're anxious to see what the baby's going to look like. You're ready to push, you're ready to hold, you're ready to enjoy. And that's how I feel about the women's conference. I'm ready every weekend. I'm doing things to prepare for my presentation. I know all of the other presenters are doing the same thing, and we are ready to have this baby. So, you want to just give a brief summary of the women's conference, just to remind our audience?
Yes. I sure hope you have registered on Eventbrite to be at the second Living the Balanced Life Women's Empowerment and Enrichment Conference. Our theme this year is healthy relationships. It will be at TCC on the last Saturday of February. That's the 24th from 8:45 to 3:30. Lunch will be served by Chef Shack. You do want to get there a little earlier. We also will have some free giveaways. We'll have a drawing. So you want to come and be prepared to put your name in so that your name can be drawn and you can get some of the free gifts that we have. And we're just so excited.
It's amazing the things that excite us with everything that we have going on in our lives. And we get so excited about this conference because I see it as a perfect opportunity to, as the title says, to enrich and empower women. And I love that. That is, most people think that it's all about men with me because I represent mostly men, but I am very, very, very interested in the empowerment of women. And this conference offers us an opportunity to do that. And we meet such amazing women. It's a blessing.
Well, what empowers me about it, or what I focus in, is GRM2's logo is Journey to Understanding. And I am convinced that our lack of understanding, having any clue about what's happening in our lives, makes our journey sometimes unnecessarily more difficult. And I am convinced that the three presentations we've done, plus the one we're going to do today, provide some real insight, some depth. So for the women who are listening and for the men who are eavesdropping in too, if you apply just a little bit from each of the sessions that we've had, I guarantee you that it's going to make a difference in your journey to understanding what's happening in your life.
Well, that's good. So that's a great segue to what we're talking about today. Today, again, it's the fourth episode in the 4-part series about healthy relationships. And the first one, we talked about the different personality types. And I think the topic was, are you clueless? I should have put, is Judy clueless? Because of the clash in our personality types. But of course, we learned that even though we have different personality types, we managed to make it work for over 30
No,
years.
it was not a clash. So we're not even going to put that spin on it. It wasn't a matter of clashing. It was a matter of we were different, very different.
Very different.
Very different. However, differences have a lot of value. And if you focus on the value, the differences actually begin to merge together. There's common ground.
Yes, it did. 30 years. Who would have thought that you and I would be friends 30 years later, considering how different we are? So
yes, and we're going to connect that as we talked about today's topic. And then our second topic was love languages, the 5 languages of love. And I just believe that somebody, whether you put the comments in or commented at all, made some changes in your communication style that you actually stopped and thought to yourself, okay, what's my language of love? How do I prefer to be communicated with? And how does the person who's important in my life, the people who are important in my life, what do they prefer? Because if a person really wants your quality time, gifts really aren't that important. But if the person likes gifts and you're trying to give them words of affirmation, that's great and wonderful, but they want stuff.
Stuff. Yeah.
Stuff.
So yeah, I love that. Love languages. I live by love languages. Um, Thirdly, we talked about fundamental principles of healthy relationships.
From that one, remember we did the flash. I had a flash in my mind or something flashed through my mind. And we use those letters to identify for us those issues, those points, those principles, those fundamental concerns that we must address. The F stood for forgiveness, and we tied that to the Lord's Prayer. We are forgiven as we forgive others. Then we did love. The Bible shows us, John 3:16, probably the most commonly known Bible text, that it was love that caused God the Father to give up his Son to offer to pay the penalty for our sins. Then we did acceptance. Unconditional love is also unconditional love. However, there's a distinction between unconditional love and paying the cost or taking the consequences of our decisions. So we can love our children unconditionally, but if they continue to make poor choices, we can love our spouses. We can even love our parents unconditionally. But there are consequences for the choices that we make, and we need to give some thought to that. The S in FLASH stands for service. Service is a way of keeping us from thinking we're better than someone else. It is a way of keeping us humble. It is a way of also making us grateful. It's a way of letting us know that our lives are our lives, and our lives can be fundamentally very different from someone else's. Put another way is we need to be mindful of those who are less fortunate, because for most of us, it wouldn't take a whole lot for us to join those who are less fortunate. And the H stood for humility. Humility means you human.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. Like, yeah, you just like the rest of us. And so be very, very mindful of and avoid being prideful.
Yes.
There you go.
And so today we're going to talk about it's like a summary of everything that we've spoken about in the past 3 episodes. And it still provides new information. We're going to talk about communication style. That is important because the way we communicate with our spouse, our significant other, and our friends, co-workers, bosses, it can either turn them on or it can turn them off.
Yeah, and we got 5 of those. Just like we got the 5 love languages, we have these 5 communication styles. We're really talking about communication styles.
Yes, and the key for the people who are listening, I'm not going to wait to the end to say the more of the story is. So the key is listen to these communication styles, decide where you fit in, and then decide whether your listener fits in, whether that's your spouse, significant other, your boss, or coworker, your best friend. Figure out where they fit in, and then you have to decide if you all are clashing, then your communication style is not working. That's the reason you're clashing. So maybe you need to adjust.
You know,
Go
I
ahead.
didn't cut you off.
Mhm.
You know, I hope that our listeners are realizing that it does require just a little bit of gray matter as you participate and listen to these friendly discourses, because we want to help you to activate your thinking process. It's nice to stumble into stuff, but it's so much better when it's intentional, when you actually give it some thought. So we talked about my being clueless. Part of my being clueless was because I was ignorant, just straight up ignorant.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
it's
there's a difference between being ignorant. Well, we're gonna leave that.
yeah,
We'll just
no
leave it. Ignorant means that
difference between ignorant and being stupid, right? That's what you're gonna say. Definitely not stupid. Ignorant, we will accept.
ignorant means you can learn, you can be taught. You're just not aware. You don't know.
Mhm. All right. So the first communication style that we're going to talk about I will definitely let you talk about it. It's called the direct approach.
No, you really should talk about it because you have talked about me. You have described this style, this approach with me so many times. You talked about how when you were an associate, you and Sarah were associates in my office and the whole staff, that I would come into the meeting and I would start off with, we're going to do this. It's called the direct approach. And the direct approach is just very clear. It's very specific. It leaves no room for imagination and not fill in the blanks. And yeah, it works for the person who's delivering it, but usually doesn't work for those who are listening unless they too are bottom line people. And so the bottom line is, I'm a bottom line person.
I like, so when we talk about the direct approach, I like bottom line. And that is you are a bottom line person. I like when you start a conversation with me and I said, hey, Judy, how are you doing? And you said, Neibra, I only got 10 minutes to talk to you. So give me the quick synopsis of what's going on. And then I got to go. And I'm going, who can respond to that? Because in my mind is rolling. Okay, let me narrow down everything that I was going to talk about in the 1 hour that we always talk. I got 10 minutes to narrow it down. And she wants the synopsis, give me the brief summary. And I'm going, I got nothing. I got nothing because there's nothing that I can summarize. But that's how and that's your first comment as soon as I say good morning, Judy. And then you have this thing that you say, okay, give me 5 sentences or less. Or if I'm telling you something about my case, you'll say, okay, I got it. Just narrow it down in 2 sentences, but I think I got it. And I'm going,
I'm not that bad. I will say,
which 2 sentences can I narrow this long story down in? But that's your approach, the direct approach.
Well, I'll also say, just give me the facts. And I learned this past week, I'm gonna make a plug. You might want to look at my Facebook page because I talked about what happened to me this past Saturday for February the 3rd. And I was at this conference, and one of the things I learned is that when you're doing social media, you got to hit it immediately. You do the exact opposite that we do as lawyers. We need to we were taught to give the conclusion and then build the story. And I made the comment, I should be able to do that because in court, I will say to the attorneys, tell me what this case is about in 3 sentences or less, watch the conjunctions and the semicolons, just what's it about?
Direct, very direct. Perfect example. Okay, didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I'm done. So I hope now that I can take this communication style I have and translate it over to social media where it might be a perfect fit.
Well, let me ask, because it's about learning. You know now that you have the direct communication, bottom line personality, communication style. So what have you learned from the listener standpoint? If the listener is not a direct person, what have you gained?
What I've gained is, okay, pause. Let's name the 5 styles, okay? The 5 styles. The 5 styles are direct, indirect, progressive, storytelling, and debate. All right. So I have learned that I need to be perfectly chilled when I'm talking to people who I know are going to require my time, undivided time.
Yes.
And the best example I can give you of that is when I cared for my parents for 10 years. I would not interact with my parents unless I was perfectly chilled, because I knew if I were not perfectly chilled, it was not going to be a good experience for anybody. Like, I got to go, I got things to do, my mind is preoccupied. Let's just do this and be done with it.
Yes. Well, the next one is indirect communication, and I guess that would be me. I like to say a person who has the indirect communication style, they are the sugarcoaters. We like to make sure that in my communication with you, that you feel comfortable, I'm soft and cuddly. I don't want to hurt your feelings. I'm going to preserve your dignity and mine. And I use that approach with my staff a lot in my law office. This is when I had staff, and I've had 5 staff at one time. So they would screw up. And I learned that the direct approach didn't work because everybody's feelings would get hurt. So I decided to use the indirect. Let's talk about what's going on. What's going on in your life? Is there something going on in your life that may have impacted your work week? Stuff like that. As a boss, I should be able to use the direct approach, but the indirect approach seemed to work better for them. It didn't work for me because only thing I wanted to communicate was that you all are screwing up. I need you to get it together. And in the indirect approach, we're in a 3-hour staff meeting and they're telling me the whole story of their lives. What's going on with the boyfriend, what's going on with the college classes and all that. And I'm going, ooh, this didn't work out. So what I've learned is there's a time and place for indirect communication style. And it does not work in as a boss and boss employee relationship. It does not work. You have to be more direct with your staff in order for your staff to respect the hierarchy. You're laughing because you've said this to me, what, 100 times?
No, I'm laughing because if you remember, I would say to everyone in the office, when you walk past the threshold of the door, you have now entered a safe place.
Yes.
Whatever issues you have going on outside for the next 8 hours, you don't have to pick them up. You don't have to think about them. You don't have to worry about them. I am going to protect that. So even if your girlfriend or husband or spouse or significant other wants to call this office and give you and dump on you, you have my absolute permission to say to them, I'm sorry, I'm working and I will get fired if I engage in this conversation. And for me, I found that when I tried to do the direct approach, nobody paid attention. It's like, I told you, we don't do that. And when I said like, we don't do that, I might as well be talking to the wall. But when I go, okay, this is how this rolls. You do this, these are the consequences, and you can rest assured the consequences will be enforced. Okay.
Yeah.
What part of that did you not understand?
And see, I get that. And that may explain why I don't have staff right now, because the indirect approach is something that I've used a lot because that's kind of the approach that I want people to take from me. If I screw up on something or if I need reprimanding on something. And so I give what I want. And even though I know it has not worked in 30 years in my office relationship, that's still who I am. And so rather than, because what happens is I use the indirect approach when I see it's not working, and then I get very direct. And that's when people heads roll and people got fired. I have hired and fired so many people.
Yeah, but they don't understand. But they don't understand how that happened because you were so cuddly before. We have an experience. Remember the experience in our office where I had an employee. She had the capacity of doing A+ work, and I would begin to count on her doing A+ work, and then she would just flip to an F. And it was driving me crazy. And in that one day, you remember that story? And one day, I am not known for cursing. I cursed. And I looked at her and I said, I don't curse. And I curse. You are fired. I will pay you 2 weeks notice, 2 weeks salary to just leave because I can't handle this up and down. Now, mind you, we had that discussion. I told her she could be an A student, but I could not handle the inconsistency. So if I'd done your approach, I would be, well, the reason she's not, she's up and down because I don't really care, because all I know is that from 8 to 5, I just want a work. And I don't want to curse.
All right. So the next approach, next communication style is the progressive approach. I don't think that's either of us.
I have someone in my life who fits this definition to a T. It is called the collaborative approach. This is where they want everybody to buy in, to be all in. The only problem with that is I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. Once you tell me what you're going to do, I've already decided whether I'm in or out.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm either in or I'm out.
Yep.
And I don't need to be baited in. I don't need to be persuaded. I don't need to be, I don't need ownership. I'm just going to tell you, yeah, I'm in.
Mhm.
My word's my bond, or I'm out. And I'm out.
Yeah. I know. I call it a compromise. It's like, can't we
All get
all
along?
get along? Um, let's sit down and figure out the solution to the problem. Okay, so the problem is I'm bringing this to the table, you're bringing this to the table. Can we find a compromise to this solution, as opposed to the direct approach where you would say, I've given you the rules, I've told you the policy and the principles, you violated it, and now it's time for you to go. Or the indirect approach is, well, let's figure out what's going on with you. Now tell me what's going on with you. Now, do you think that you'll be able to handle your job appropriately despite what's going on in your personal life? And then the progressive approach says, bring me all of your issues. I'm going to bring you all of mine, and we're going to figure out a solution that works well in my law practice that makes life great for everybody. Why in the world would that work in an office where I'm the one paying the salaries, they're the one earning the checks, but I am inviting them to create policy and principles that make them feel comfortable in the office? So
Yeah.
no, I may be indirect, but I am not a compromiser. And we don't do the collaborative process in my office. These are the rules.
Well, I think that from another point of view, I kind of am that, but it's shown so differently. I'm known as the 3 times person. The first time you bring me a problem, an issue, a discussion, I am all in.
Mhm.
We're going to take this thing, we're going to turn it, we're going to twist it, we're going to look at it from every angle, we're going to change the lighting on it, we're just going to rework it. We are going to analyze to the depth, not death, but depth, DEPTH, of this issue. Okay, now you've walked away with some solutions, just like friendly discourse, everybody. You've walked away with some solutions and some options and some directions and an opportunity to make some changes.
Yes.
Now, when you come back, the first question I'm going to ask you is, so what did you do with all of that information and all that conversation and compromise and indirect and direct and the storytelling and the debate that we had? And you should have a report. And if you have a report, that means we stay at step 1. We start all over again, because step 1, when you've activated step 1, changes have been made. We have more information. We have some track records. We got some statistics. We got some data we can work with. But if you say to me, you didn't do a thing,
That's a problem.
well, I get real quiet. And I don't say much, and I'll just go, well, didn't we talk about that? And then you come back the third time and it goes like this. Oh, I don't have anything else to say. I'm done. By the way, and I'm out too.
Yeah.
Now, this doesn't sound very good for someone who wants to do group coaching. However, there comes a time to know when to fold them and when to play them. And
You definitely know.
go ahead.
You definitely know when to fold them.
Well, I think that is important, that we take ownership and responsibility for our choices. That's just the bottom line. And at some point, you know that what you're doing, the situation you're in, is not healthy. It's just not healthy.
Yes.
And the longer you, my deceased brother, my brother Joe would say, the cheapest price you pay to solve any problem is the price you pay today. That is true.
Yeah.
It is true. Whatever you're dealing with, if you deal with it today, it doesn't get a chance to fester and become worse. So let me put it in our language as divorce attorneys before they changed the alimony law.
Yeah.
The longer you kept her, the more alimony you were going to have to pay. So if you knew in year 10 that this was not going to work, you probably should have cut it by year 12. Because if you waited to year 20, yeah,
Yeah.
under the old law, that would definitely be permanent alimony.
Yeah. That's one nice way to put it. All right. So the next one, communication style, number 4, storytelling. And I think let me speak to my experiences. I do a lot of storytelling in my job. I represent people who are going through divorces or family law issues, paternity cases, child support, all that stuff. And I've been doing it for 30 years, and I hear and see the same things over and over again. Very seldom do I get anything new. I always chuckle when somebody say, "Oh, I bet I brought you some mess here, some drama here," and I'm just like, no, that's like mundane, everyday stuff I hear. But they benefit in my consultations. I will tell them about some prior cases, my experiences on cases, what the judges are doing. And so it's constant storytelling. And some people receive it, and when they receive it well, because their next response is, "Oh, thank you for sharing that information. That's similar to my case." And the people who don't receive it well, at the tail end, as soon as you shut your mouth, they move on with, and my question is this. And my mind immediately went, okay, that didn't work for them. It works better with women because women like to hear stories. With men, they're more direct. They don't want to hear the stories. They're like, okay, I called you. I'm going to hire you. Tell me how much it's costing. Tell me how long it's going to take. Tell me how much my child support is going to be. They're very direct. And so I've learned, don't give a bunch of, maybe one story, 2 at the most when I'm talking to men. Women, they will ask you, have you had this case before? Can you give me an example of a case you had? Who was the judge on the case? And they want all the details. And so I can story tell forever when I'm talking to women in consultations, because that's how they learn. That's how they digest information. So what about you?
Well, storytelling has become my antidote to being direct. I'm trying to learn to do, and I usually tell a story when if I start telling you a story, there's a high probability I'm getting ready to say something that's very pointed, very would be called harsh, and difficult to digest. What's the word I'm looking for? The resistance. That's the word I'm looking for. The resistance to it, if I just gave it to you direct, is going to be very high. So I am intentionally trying to learn to tell stories. And I think that I have enough, I know, let's just be honest, I have enough experience. I've heard enough, I've seen enough, I've experienced enough to be able to draw an illustration about whatever it is we're talking about. My goal is to try to summarize this. There you go, direct, bottom line. Yep. Try to direct this to condense the story into a tight story. And I have to admit that part of that concept comes from Jesus told parables. And the reason he told parables was because the people could grasp the parable, and eventually they would begin to understand the deeper meaning and implications and the messages hidden in the parables. But they would never forget the story. So we all know the story. We don't all know, but the story is told of Jesus told the parable of a sower went forth to sow seeds. Mm-hmm. So every time the people would look on the hillside and see a sower sowing seeds, they would remember the parable that Jesus told. And I know, Neibra, I do this with you a lot. Mm-hmm. I know I do. because you'll come back and you'll tell me about the story.
Yeah.
And at some point you realize I was sharing with you some wisdom, some insight
Yeah.
based on that story.
Yep.
And the story also allows me to put sugar in the castor oil.
Yeah. I love your stories. I'd rather for you to be a storyteller than to be the direct person. I get a lot more out of it. And so but you've learned the direct approach does not work well with Neibra, unless Neibra is in that phase. Now, you and I, especially when we're busy and we're trying to relate information, we both get there at moments where you call me or I call you and we just need bottom line. But for the most part, direct communication doesn't work well for me. And so you've had to tailor your communication style when you're talking to me, right?
Not only have I done that, but I have tried to be extremely chill during the time that we're talking.
Yeah.
So the secret is I now walk while I'm talking to Neibra. That allows me to be perfectly focused on her. She has my undivided attention. I can walk and talk for the allotted time that we don't walk and talk.
Yeah. And there's always a lot. Now, this last style, and I'm glad they put it last, especially for the two of us, the debate style. Guilty as charged.
Guilty as charged.
Yes.
I got a story for this one.
Yes, go.
Jim and I were still newlyweds. We lived in Columbus, Ohio, and we would join other students. He was doing his doctorate, and I was there too. And we went to eat with some friends, fellow students, after church, and on Sabbath. And this gentleman and I, this other student, this guy and I, we got into it. I mean, we went at it. When I got home, my husband read me the carpet, whatever it is.
The riot.
Yeah. He read me the riot act. And I felt really, really badly about it. Like, was I really that harsh? Was I really that insensitive? Was I really that bad of a person? I have a tender heart. I know y'all don't believe that, but my daddy says I have a tender heart. There's your story. But anyway, so I call the guy early Sunday morning to say, if I owe you an apology, I am so sorry. He laughed in my face. Asked me what that man became.
What?
A lawyer. What did I become? A lawyer. But there you go. And I then looked at my husband and I said, okay, you don't like that style of communication, but don't leave me alone. Just leave me alone. That's my style of a conversation. And lawyers can smell lawyers 5 miles away. You just smell them. And good lawyers can debate anything and they can flip sides in the middle of the discussion.
Oh, you're speaking my language now, because I can't tell you. I mean, that is my communication style, and no matter how much I try to change it, it's very difficult to change it. Every relationship, including my current relationship, accuses me of being a lawyer all the time. And the common statement is, you're not in the courtroom, you're talking to your mate. Stop being a lawyer. And my comment is always, lawyer is just a title. It's just a label. I am who I am. I have this personality type. I have this communication style. And I found a career that matches that. But if you take the law degree away, I will be the exact same person, because this is how I communicate, which makes it worked out. It makes for a great lawyer. But I was this since I was 7 or 8 years old. Once I learned to communicate, it is the person who's always trying to convince the other side that they're right, or bring them over to your side. I'm not going to say right, but help them to understand things from your standpoint. And so it's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it will go back and forth until the other side concedes, because that's how we That's how lawyers are. And the beauty of being a lawyer, the reason is most lawyers are like that is because we thrive off it. We thrive off it. Now, I'll be the first to say, which, I mean, everybody who knows me know I've been divorced twice. And I've struggled in relationships, I will acknowledge that. But one of the reasons is because this debate style typically only works with other lawyers or people with lawyer mentalities. And that's typically not who my husbands and my boyfriends are. So,
Well, yes. And first of all, my husband said that I was a lawyer long before I became a lawyer. So that confirms that it's a way that we process information. We are by definition very analytical, how we look at things. We look at the pros, the cons. We're quick to do, as my father said, take a piece of paper, draw a line down the middle, list all the pros, list all the cons, and decide which has the most number and go with that. Lawyers, though, historically have been about winning and losing. Now it's more joy, more satisfying if you can do a win-win, where both parties can come out almost, as you may say, we come out with a compromise. Believe it or not, was that the
was it a compromiser one?
yeah, the one who wants a collaborative effect. So there's a high interest now and more of a collaborative approach to legal issues.
That's the
But
progressive.
it still is based on some fundamental principles. And if we call it black letter law, and we're not going to stray too far from black letter law. We can come to a win-win, but it's probably going to be two black letter laws being put together to come up with something that works win-win.
Yeah.
So people don't understand lawyers because they think lawyers are hired guns. Well, no, they don't think that they're hired guns. They think that they are an extension of themselves. And you would see a lot of this in family law, and you also see it in criminal law, because the client or the defendant expects the lawyer to take on their persona and to be like them, which is why when you're doing, we're going to stick to divorce cases and family law because that's really our expertise. And as a judge, I've seen it on the criminal side as well. But if I'm going to go ahead and call it the woman, the wife, hates the husband, she wants the lawyer that hates the husband.
Right.
Like, I don't know him. I don't have anything against him. Why would I hate him? Besides, that's going to interfere with my ability to get good alimony out of him for you. So yeah, that's really not to your best interest.
Right.
And I remember a case distinctly where the female lawyer and I in the courtroom went like cats at it.
Mhm.
I was embarrassed myself for
Yeah.
both of us. And we walked across the threshold and said, let's go get something to eat.
Yeah.
And there you go. But I made a promise to myself that I would never again act like that in the courtroom. We're not having a cat fight. We're just not doing that. But people don't understand that lawyers can argue positions and they just argue the position. And when they finish, they walk out the door and they go play golf together or go to lunch.
Yeah.
We're friends. We are friends. You and I we've had a couple cases where we've been on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay,
Yep.
we're before the judge. Make your
And
best
we
argument.
litigate these
Hey,
cases. We don't resolve
litigate. Make your
them.
best,
We litigate these cases.
make your best argument. And you remember the story years ago where you came into my office and you told me about the case you had down before Judge, it was in Wakala, Judge Padavano, I remember it. And you told me the case and I just kind of looked at you and said, because back in those days, I really was a lawyer. I said, I showed you a case that had just come out. You want to tell them the rest of the story? So you go down to litigate the case?
Yep. I went down to litigate the case, brand new lawyer, had only been in your office. I think this was the first month that I've been in your office. And you handed me the Florida Law Weekly with this new case that just come down regarding fair market value of marital homes or something like that. And Judge Padavano is the judge, the opposing attorney is arguing the old law. And Judge Padavano is agreeing with the attorney, and I'm sitting there like this, our hands crossing, I'm like, and he says, I feel like I'm right, but I'm looking over at, I was Washington at that time, looking over at Attorney Washington, and she's got this look on her face where she's basically telling me that I'm wrong. So I'm just going to shut up and listen to what she has to say. And I sat up very boldly and I said, that law has changed. As a matter of fact, I have the Florida Law Weekly here with the most recent case that has changed that area of law. And the judge, I said, you, and I have copies for everybody. I handed everybody the copies. And the judge says, let's all take a minute to read it. And he says, well, Miss Washington is absolutely correct. That is no longer new law. So Miss Washington, will you please educate us on what the law is and how the law should be applied? And that was my winning moment. Brand, a new lawyer. I mean, those, it doesn't take much to excite new lawyers. But the only thing I couldn't wait. I was like, I got to get out of here. I got to go tell Judy. Let me go tell Judy. Let me go tell Judy. And it was one of those moments, one of those accolades that every new lawyer needs, for the judge to look at you and just say, I think I'm wrong. Let the learned counsel tell me. Tell me. And I graduated law school when I was 23 years old. So this had to have been, I was 24 years old at that moment. And there I was with the judge acknowledging me. It was a prideful moment, very prideful moment. So.
And so the debate, if you look at it more from a point of view of exchanging ideas and holding your positions, now this becomes difficult and unhealthy as we look at what's happening now in America in our political environment, because the ideas have become so, people have become so entrenched in their ideas, and they're so far apart that finding middle ground is going to be very, very difficult. But good lawyers, good statesmen, they look for a way to bring it together. And the debate should result in something that's better. So even if you lose, you've learned something. And if you've won, you aren't proudful. Is that the word I want? You don't act like you defeated the other side. You win gracefully. You win gracefully.
Gracefully, yes. No gloating.
No gloating.
And I do
Be
that.
humble. Be humble.
Yes. And I tell my clients, I can tell typically when the judge is about to rule, I can tell from the first couple of comments that we're winning. And I will reach over to my clients or I write a note that says, the judge is going to rule in our favor on this issue. Absolutely do not have a reaction. Do not gloat, do not smile, just be stoic in your reaction. Because I recognize this is a family is being broken down.
Yes.
And the last thing that you need to do is gloat and I told you so, or boast. It's just gonna make the wedge in the family a lot greater. We gotta be graceful in the ruling. And I likewise tell my clients, the judge is going to rule against us on this issue. I already hear it coming. So prepare yourself. Because I've had to pick up a couple of women off the floor. They're falling out like they do in church and they're crying. And that has zero impact on the judge. Zero impact. And it just embarrasses the person. And that's why I give heads up. We're about to lose. Prepare yourself. Because I do not want to have to pick you up off the floor.
Race works on both sides. And I think if there's a bottom line of what we've been sharing with everybody over these 4 sessions is this: healthy relationships will build healthy communications. It's a give and take. And most of us are not going to stumble into it. Most of us are actually going to have to work for it. We're going to have to use some gray cells, but the rewards are so much greater. Isn't it nice to know that your children, your significant others, your parents, that if you would give them your communication in their love language, their style, that it becomes a win-win.
Yeah.
It becomes a win-win. And if it doesn't become a win-win, then it's an unhealthy relationship and it's time to start making some serious changes. And to understand that how we communicate our styles. For me, I am bottom line. I'm not sure, I was just hardwired that way. I'm hardwired that I'm bottom line. something about time. It may be also the way I just process information. I need very few facts to come to a very sound conclusion.
Yeah. And other people don't. Some
And
people
other people,
require the long version but I think the takeaway, and I've loved this series, the 4-part series we've done. Of course, I love the submission and the compromise, the freedom, and all of the other things that we talked about in the last friendly discourse. But I will admit that I've struggled in relationships, not just intimate relationship, personal relationships, but in my relationships with staff, our relationship with my friends. And because of what we've learned over these past 4 episodes, our discussions, I'm paying more attention to how I communicate, paying more attention to love languages. I'm paying more attention to the other side. And I'm being more clear. I like clarity. So I am being more clear. If the person does not understand me, I say, okay, this person has a different communication style, or this person has a different love language. I'm not appealing to this person in their language. And so it's been a learning lesson to me. Now, this is the only caveat I have. These lessons only work if both sides are learning the lessons together, or if the other side is open to learning what you're learning. The hardest thing for me is to have all of this knowledge and to be implementing this knowledge, and the other person is not receptive to learn these things or to be taught. So they're not learning it. I can give them the information and they're not learning it. And I'm trying to teach it to them and they're not paying attention to me. And so I'm communicating with somebody and they're still communicating wrong and properly. But again,
not effectively.
yeah, not effectively. But then I say, well, this is just not a healthy relationship. And the sad part about it is once you know you can't unknow and you learn this is just not a healthy relationship.
At your cost.
That is, yeah, and that is hard, especially relationships that you've had, friendships that you've had for years, friendships that you value. This will bring you the clarity. We pray for clarity and discernment. You'll get it. And then you have to figure out what are you going to do with it.
And on our journeys to understanding, we must understand that some people can walk with us a long distance. Some people will walk with us a short distance, and some people should not walk with us at all. And it allows us to be healthy, because when the day is finally over and we have to review our lives and the choices that we've made, you're not going to be able to say, I did what I did because he or she made me. They never made you. You never ever give up freedom of choice. The thing that I'm taking away from this is that I need a lot more patience. I need to be, as I said, I need to be chilled. I just need to be chilled. I just went through an experience of helping someone. I could have handled the situation in 60 minutes or less. But I ended up being with the person every time. It was a 4-hour ordeal. And it was because that person just needed to be heard. And I'm very proud of myself. I went through several of those 4-hour sessions. And all doing it, I kept saying to myself, this is not about you, Judy. This is not about your lawyer skills. This is about your human skills. And at this point right now, this person needs to be heard.
Yes.
And you need to listen. You need to listen.
Yeah.
So I'm growing. And besides, I want you all to know that I do listen.
Yes. Oh, we talk about, so anybody who visited your YouTube channel and they read the description about our discussions, it always ends with the purpose of these discussions is to provoke thought and communication. And so I don't know about anybody else listening to it, but every time I can look at my current relationship, my current lifestyle, everything about me, and I can see the things that I've learned in the first series on submission and compromise and freedom. And what's the one I'm missing? We missed one. Freedom,
Submission, oh, yeah, submission.
submission, compromise, freedom is one we're missing, but we'll catch it later.
Yeah.
Or you can go to the YouTube channel and find it. But, and then I look at everything we've learned in this series about healthy relationships, and I'm implementing those things. So if nobody else has gained anything by it, I sure have. I hope that the audience, any of the listeners have digested it, have implemented it. Their relationships are growing healthier as a result of listening to us. And if not, just listen again. Just start over and listen again.
Because the bottom line is you really do want to live the balanced life. So come on out on February 24th to TCC for our second women's conference.
Right.
That's good. And we're talking about healthy relationships.
Relationships.
And the best way to have healthy relationships, you can finish the sentence. You need to be
Healthy yourself.
healthy yourself. Register at Eventbrite. Lunch will be served by Chef Shack. Registration fee is $99. And we are getting close to the closing cutoff date, and we're approaching our numbers. So you do want to come. The seating is limited. Be blessed.
Be blessed. It's always a pleasure, Judy. So I look forward to, I think we're going to do a summary. We may do another summary like we did with the last 4-part series. If not, then we look forward to seeing everybody at the Women's Conference on the 24th.
And it's okay with us if you kind of give us some feedback and tell us what you thought. We're amazed at how many people listen, but they don't give comments. And that could be as we go off and I tell this story.
Yes.
When I was campaigning, I met a woman that I had an office consultation with. And I asked her, why didn't you come back for me to represent you? And she said, because what you said to me in the office consultation, I listened to it, I applied it, and there was no need for a lawyer because it worked just like you said it would. There you go.
There you go. So as long as it's working, we would love to have your comments. We would love to have some feedback. But if you're just listening, implementing, and it's helping you build a healthier relationship, we're good. Right?
We're good. And it's okay. You can just put in a comment. I heard it, I tried it, it worked. Bottom line.
Direct. Well, you have a great day, Judy, and I look forward to working with you and getting ready to hatch this baby.
This baby is hatched. We're delivering it.
To deliver this baby.
We're delivering this baby.
Okay. Right.
On the 24th of February. Everybody come. Bye.
Bye-bye.